Okay, so as Evan said today, we are going to be looking at a real desire for righteousness. Now, first of all, I want to go ahead and get out the way that this is going to be a more interactive thing. So I'm going to be asking questions. So I'm going to need some feedback from everybody. So first thing, we're going to turn to Matthew 5:6. And that says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied." So this verse explains to us that if we truly hunger and thirst for righteousness, that God will help to satisfy us. But the question is, how do we search for righteousness, and where do we find it? And also, what is righteousness? So what do you guys think righteousness is? That was wonderful, Aaron. Thank you so much for that. That was great. The biblical definition for righteousness. That was exactly what I was looking for. Doing right in the sight of God. So in Romans 3:10, it says, "As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one." So this verse is telling us that none of us are right in the sight of God, and none of us are worthy to be right in the sight of God. So how are we supposed to strive for righteousness if none of us are able to be righteous? But that's why we have Christ as a mediator. So in 2 Corinthians 5:2, it says, "For he hath made him to be sin for us, who knew no sin, that we may be right in the sight of God in him." So this verse tells us that God sacrificed his one and only son so that we can be right in the sight of God through him. And so we can be accepted into heaven through him. So something that stood out to me that Evan helped me with is he pointed out the fruits of the Spirit. And that is a personal application that we can all apply in our lives. And the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So I'm beginning a little vulnerable here. So something that I'm personally struggling with, or that I personally struggle with in my day-to-day life, is gentleness. And that's because I play sports. I'm an athlete. And my primary sport is soccer. And I know a lot of y'all probably think, oh, soccer is a no-contact sport, and they all flop and stuff. That's not true. That's the bad players. That's not me. So one of the things that I personally struggled with is that in game, I get very into the game, and I get very emotional, if you would like to call it that, in the fact that I didn't need that. In the fact that if we're down, if we're losing, and that type of thing, I tend to get angry. And then sometimes that anger comes out on the field in doing things that probably aren't legal, but like sometimes the ref doesn't call it, so it's like it's okay, right? No. So something that actually happened in this past game that and I got my leg back because I got injured, but is I ran into somebody on purpose very hard, and that wasn't Christ-like. What I should have done I was angry. We were up in arms. They were talking a lot. It was a really bad situation, but I reacted in a way just like everybody else was reacting, and I didn't exemplify Christ in the way that I reacted. So something that I personally need to work on is gentleness, and being able to be put in those situations and still be meek enough to sit myself back, exemplify Christ, and just play through the game without being violent towards others. So another way that we can search for righteousness is with other believers, is being with other believers. So in 2 Corinthians 6:14, it says, "Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion hath light with darkness?" So we as Christians need a fellowship with one another. Now, this is not saying that we are not allowed to have friends that are outside the church. In fact, God commands us in the Great Commission to go into all the world and preach and teach to everybody. So this is not saying that we should just only have Christian friends. But this is saying that we need to be careful with the friends that we do have, whether they be Christians or non-Christians. Another personal application is I go to a private Christian, big air quotes, Christian school, and their first assembly is of God. I don't even know what they believe, to be honest with you, but it's definitely not the same. It's not the Lord's church. And then most of the kids there don't even go to that church. So it's been put in our, goodness gracious, it's been put in our student, like with us talking about students, that this is the closest that you can get to a public school without it being a public school. So we're not being taught crazy things, and we still have God in our curriculum, but the actions of people around the school is just like a public school would be. People are still doing crazy things. So I don't have a whole lot of friends in school, but I do have specifically one guy that I would call a good friend of mine, but he is not a believer in Christ. He's actually, I don't know what the word is for it, but he just doesn't believe in anything. Or that's wrong. He believes that there is a creator, and he believes of something up there, but he doesn't know what it is, and he doesn't care. And so what I have to be careful of is him pulling me away from Christ. And I've let that happen. In fact, I believe, if my time is right, I believe last Sunday I came forward and I said that I was living a double life. And that is exactly what was happening. I was coming to church. I was coming on Wednesdays, coming on Sundays. I was going through the motions. I was doing what I needed to do, but I was living a double life in the fact that when I was at school, I acted like a completely different person. And it wasn't even something like conscious. It wasn't even something where I was like, yeah, I'm going to sneak and do these things at school. It was more just me trying to fit in with people. And I think that's a really big struggle for people our age, is that we feel alone in the fact that we're Christians and that we live in a certain way, and we have certain standards that we're not, and certain lines that we're not willing to cross. When a lot of people our age are buck wild and just do whatever they want to do. And they don't have that standard. They don't have the Bible as a guide. And so that's what I personally was struggling with. And I repented last week. And I mean, I'm not even going to lie to you. I went to school this week and it was a lot better. I did a lot better than I have been. And I wasn't a completely different person, but I did slip up. I did have a couple of mistakes, because once you get in the habit of living like that and just being a whole different person at school, it's hard to get out of that habit. But it's something that I put myself in that situation, and so I'm going to have to fix it, and I'm going to have to keep pushing through. And it's going to be a struggle. God never said it was going to be easy to be a Christian, but that's what I signed up for, and that's what I'm willing to do. So this is something that I have to watch out for, that I do associate with believers, but I need to do it even more. I feel like, and have people that can hold me accountable in the way that I act in school, outside of school. And so something that we're doing now is Aaron gave me, when I came up here, he was like, don't be afraid to text me and call me. And in his words, he said, don't let it happen again, which sounded like a threat, but I mean, hey, but I mean, he's right. Him and Wade Braddock, who isn't here, but they have been my kind of accountability partners for a very long time, and Oakley too, have been my accountability partners with certain things for a very, very long time. And they know certain things that I've struggled with that I haven't told anybody. But I didn't use that resource. I kind of just let myself drift away. So I'm going to strive and push and make sure to use your resources and use people that sounded bad. And to not use people, but let people, if people want to help you, let them help you. Don't push them out of your life and be prideful like I was and be like, oh, I can do it by myself, because you can't. It's impossible. So be sure to associate with other believers, and don't let other people that are outside of Christ pull you away from Christ, and make sure that you're pulling them towards Christ rather than them pulling you away. In Proverbs 27:17, it says, iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. And us athletes, we love this verse so much. But that's a lot of times when athletes like a verse, it's because we're taking it out of context. So let's look at what it really means. Christians can help each other by holding each other accountable. Now, getting somebody, like I use the example of Aaron, getting somebody that you can look to hold accountable, that can hold you accountable and that you can hold accountable, that is kind of like your accountability partner. You need somebody to do that with. It doesn't have to be a bunch of people, but I would say find one person that you trust. It could be your mom, it could be your dad, it could be your friend, it could be your grandma. It doesn't matter. But find somebody that has the same goals as you, that is striving to get to heaven as hard as you are, and you have similar life goals, in the fact that by the end of your life, you want to be able to say that I lived my life and I did what I was supposed to do, and I know that I'm making it into heaven, and that has that confidence. And another big thing that we don't like as teenagers is criticism, because we're kind of in that stage where at school we're getting criticized for all types of stuff, which is stupid, because a lot of the stuff that we're getting criticized about in school and that type of thing it has nothing to do with who you are. It's a lot of the time clothes you wear, shoes you wear, it doesn't matter. But then when we hear criticism from our peers that is constructive criticism, we immediately put a barrier up, and we immediately put like distance between, oh, they're saying that, but I'm not going to take into account what they're saying, because I've been taught to push away all this criticism, because that's what society is teaching us nowadays. It's that live your truth. That's what it is. It's live your truth, and it's really being pushed to our generation, and that's not true, because there is only one truth, and that is the Bible. And so we need to look at people, or we need to look at ourselves and be able to accept constructive criticism and not be hurt by it, and realize that the reason that the people are telling us these type of things is that is that they love us. So next thing is studying the Bible. Now, this one is probably blatantly obvious, but studying the Bible is obviously going to help you in your walk with righteousness, because it's going to keep you accountable. It's another thing. It's, instead of you having an accountability partner, this can be your accountability partner, and you can look in the mirror. This is a mirror. This reflects all of the bad, the good, all of it. It reflects it right back at you. So you see what you need to cut out, and you see what you need to continue doing. So John 6:35 says, "And Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst." Now, remember in Matthew 5:6, it says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied." This verse tells us that God is going to help satisfy us, but John 6:35 says, Jesus says, "I am the bread of life, and he that cometh to me shall never hunger." So it clearly states that if we study what Jesus has said, if we study Jesus' teachings, if we study all of the things that he has laid out for us in the Bible, that we won't thirst, we won't hunger, we will be satisfied in that search for righteousness. In John 4:14, it says, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give them shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. So this story, in context for this verse, John 4 is talking about the woman at the well, and so he's talking about, in this, he's speaking to the woman, and he's saying that whoever drinks of the water that I give shall never thirst. So originally, the woman thought that he was being literal, But soon the woman realizes what he's saying and realizes that he's the Messiah and what he meant. So this verse tells us again, just like in the verse before, that if we listen and study the teachings of Jesus, that he will satisfy us for that hunger and thirst for righteousness. So in conclusion, the search for righteousness is continuous. It's never ending. And it never says it's going to be easy. And as Christians, we are supposed to improve and grow along the way. The more that we seek righteousness, the stronger we get in our faith and the more spiritually mature we become. This doesn't mean, like I said, this does not mean that it'll be easy. It doesn't mean that as you go on, the more spiritually mature you get, that the less trials you face or anything like that, because we live on a flawed planet. It's not one of the things where it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, why do good people experience bad things? It's because we live in a flawed world. So just because we're doing as we're supposed to does not mean that trials aren't going to pop up here and there. But we have something to look forward to in heaven, and that can be our end goal, and that's what we look forward to forever. And also on that search for righteousness, and on that, if we're walking in the light, then God will help us through whatever trials and tribulations come our way. Thank you.